Hey, what's up guys? Alex Espinoza with Ricky Henderson of YouTube. Make sure to use the code RickyBlog at lastdivebar.com for 10% off your next order. And use my affiliate link down below to help me out. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I've been gone for a few days. It's the All-Star break, but a whole bunch of A's news is happening. And there's a lot of stuff I want to cover on a Ricky Report soon, but for right now I just kind of want to focus on this Thursday Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting, which is set to happen at 3 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday. So, the Las Vegas Stadium Authority is set to meet for the first time in a couple months. The last time we heard from them was in May. And the Stadium Authority is an 11-member board that's appointed, and it's led by Chairman Steve Hill, for the record. Of course, we heard from him last year during the SB1 hearings, and if you're a Raiders fan, you probably recognize him from the Stadium Authority that was established for the Raiders a few years back when Allegiant Stadium became a reality. So on Friday evening last week, the authority shared a 109-page agenda that features some new materials from the A's. And a couple months ago, Hill said it was pretty likely the A's would present a draft development agreement. But just looking through these documents that are publicly available and that were posted on Friday, it doesn't look like the A's have any meat to their development agreement or any real details to share with us just yet. It looks like they're just kind of jumping through some necessary hoops. So there's 5 different items on this agenda, and here I'm just going to kind of run through them individually to tell you kind of what to expect for each item. And again, I don't know if this meeting is going to be publicly available. A couple months ago, Jeremy Koo, who's the lawyer, he's actually going to talk on Thursday about the non-relocation agreement, but he voiced his opinion that these should be publicly available, and as far as I know, I don't see it anywhere. I made a phone call earlier today to Clark County, and they said they didn't think so, and then I called up the Stadium Authority and sent a couple emails. So I'm trying to figure out if it is, and if it is posted, I'll make sure to share that on Twitter. Make sure to follow us at Ricky Blog. But anyway, so yeah, here's I'll go through each item, and so for the first one, it's related to the Raiders Stadium deal actually. With Allegiant Stadium, and it details the capital improvement program that'll run through 2029. This has to do with something called the Las Vegas Stadium Events Company, which is kind of relevant because the A's are about to form something similar to help get through this whole process of the stadium. And so yeah, basically this is just kind of some paperwork on what improvements and stuff that will be made the next few years and how it'll be paid for. But this doesn't have anything to do with the Stadium Authority's budget at this point, since the Stadium Events Company is, they got to take care of everything. So that's the first item, just some housekeeping. And then the second item is when we kind of get into some A's stuff. And it establishes that the A's have formed a similar company called the Athletic Stadco. So what we learned here is for now that Athletic Stadco is going to serve as the developer and the Stadium Events Company. So, and I kind of looked back at the Raiders deal for reference, and it seems like it's kind of similar, so there are some parallels here. According to the documents, the organization is just basically another arm of the A's, and it will be led by John Fisher's longtime right-hand man, Sandy Dean. So, Dean, his name pops up a lot in this agenda, this 109-page agenda. His signatures are all over the place. Just to give you some background on Dean, he co-founded Sansom Partners. It's like an investment firm with John Fisher back in 1997, and he's a board member with the A's, and he's also gone to Sacramento to see a Sutter Health Park, been part of these traveling parties, kind of at the tip of the spear for the A's, Sacramento and Vegas and everything. He was brought on to be the chairman of the Mendocino Redwoods Company after the Fisher family led the acquisition of more than 200,000 acres of redwood forest in Northern California in 2008 for $530 million. And Mendocino Redwoods Company, parent company, is Sansom Partners. So they dropped $530 million on a whole bunch of redwoods up there back in 2008. And since then, they've been embroiled in some environmental controversy. Again, they started in 2008, but a few years later, some firefighters and local residents gathered enough signatures to form a ballot measure that was passed by a 63% margin of Mendocino residents, because Mendocino Redwood Company was, they were intentionally poisoning and killing trees and then just kind of leaving them as in the forest. and then it would, kind of be tinder. So for the rest of the forest, and then it was a fire hazard and just environmental hazard with the herbicides and everything. According to this article by the Anderson Valley Advertiser, this interesting article called "The Fisher Octopus," the Fisher family spent about $250,000 against the measure, but still got defeated handily. And as the author Will Parrish wrote, with regard to Measure V, it's no surprise that the Fishers are willing to spend big to avoid paying a little more to manage the trees they perceive as weeds, tan oaks, madrones, and other hardwoods. So, it's not just the A's and the Quakes. It seems like Fisher's always just, trying to find the cheapest way out. So back in 2021, I actually asked Dave Kaval, A's team president, about Sandy Dean's involvement with the A's and the stadium search, because he's been Fisher's right-hand man for a long time. And just to give you context, this was a few weeks before the city council was set to adjourn for an August recess, and Fisher and the A's were really trying to hammer through a binding term sheet, but of course, for Howard Terminal. But of course, we all know how that worked out and never came to fruition. But so Kaval was kind of, still talking to the media pretty regularly, but I only had 15 minutes with them, so I was trying to jam in as many questions as I could. But here was his kind of answer/non-answer about Sandy Dean when I asked him about it a couple times.
Okay. And I'm curious, is Fisher's company Sansom Partners going to be heavily involved with the fundraising for this project? How involved is Sansom Partners with this?
Well, it's really the A's actually as an entity, in the same way we did it with the earthquakes in San Jose, that will be the horizontal developer of the project, which will handle all the infrastructure investment, which will take that on. And then, some of the vertical development, let's say there's a hotel, or let's say, there's a 500,000 square feet commercial office building like we built in San Jose, you might get another developer come in and say, hey, we'll do this with you, or we'll pay you for the land and we'll do the whole thing. It'll be a mix of that. It won't just be one entity, but right now there's always one horizontal or master developer who kind of takes the lead, negotiates the entitlements with the city, and then you bring on other partners. And a lot of them could be local based, people in Oakland who've had experience doing it. We've talked to a lot of these folks. I think they will be part of the plan eventually. But right now we're focused on just getting the key entitlements and seeing if it can get approved.
Okay, and I'm curious, where does Sandy Dean fit into all this? I know he's been kind of Fisher's close with Fisher throughout the years. Where does Sandy Dean fit into this whole negotiation?
Well, like I said, I'm the one who's the lead negotiator on all aspects related to this project. And so as the president of the A's and also as the CEO of our real estate group, that is my role. And so I am the key person who interfaces not only with the city side, but also with the private capital and the Fisher family. And I've done that, for over 10 years. So that's the role I have. And it's one that has been effective in the past. We have projects that have been super successful and built out, and we're hopeful we have the same success here in Oakland.
Okay, yeah, because I saw he was, possibly part of these traveling parties, and I know he's heavily involved with the Mendocino Redwood Company, which has kind of been embroiled in controversy in Northern California for the past, couple decades with environmental concerns with herbicides, leaving dead trees as potential tinder for wildfire. So I'm kind of curious, how can the public be assured that Fisher and Dean will have the Oakland's best interests in mind when, rather than Sansom's bottom line, if that's what it comes down to?
Well, I think it's important to remember that we've been here over 50 years, the A's. And we are a community asset. We care about this community. We are proposing a project that will provide community benefits at a level never seen in any city in the state of California. Remember, our community benefits package is twice the size of Google's in San Jose. And that was a project that was unanimously approved by the city council down there. So we are offering a lot. It's never enough. We know that. There are lots of things that need to be done, but people need to remember it's this or nothing. Okay. So there are other people involved who are trying to kill this project, the polluters down at the port, all this type of stuff. They have no positive vision to help the community, affordable housing, workforce development, nothing. So we have a plan. It's not perfect, but we think it's one that's been crafted with a lot of positive feedback from the community, with the city, with other key stakeholders like the port. And we're hopeful that it can get approved and actually implemented, because I think it will lead to better outcomes for the citizens of the city of Oakland.
So here's kind of the language that's presented in this documentation. It says, Athletics Holdings LLC is the sole member of Athletics Investment Group California LLC, which owns a professional baseball club that is a member of Major League Baseball, currently known as the Oakland Athletics, the team. And they also own Stadco. And Stadco shall serve as both the developer partner and the baseball stadium events company, as defined in SB1. So So basically, the A's just had to identify who's going to be, running their show for their development arm and the stadium arm, and it's going to be Sandy Dean. They also shared this organizational chart, and I'm not sure who Atlas Sports LLC is, but I'm guessing it's just another rich man tax trick thing. Who knows? Because there's a lot of rich man tax trick stuff going on that I don't quite fully understand. But so anyways, in this 29-page document, Athletics Stadco is actually, we find out that Athletics Stadco is actually just being renamed from another LLC that the A's founded in Delaware in 2021. So November 2021, perhaps that's when the A's really made the hard pivot to Vegas as their future home, But back to the agenda, item number 3 is basically a carbon copy of number 2, just saying that Athletics Stadco is going to serve as the developer, partner, and the stadium events company. So as far as I can tell, item 2 and item 3 are the same exact thing. And then on to item 4, perhaps we will see a reworked non-relocation agreement, because if you remember from a couple months ago, as the lawyer and A's fan Jeremy Koo noted, there was language in there stipulating in the non-relocation agreement that the A's could play up to 7 games outside of Las Vegas. This kind of brought up a stink, kind of as another PR hiccup by the A's, because it's like, damn, you want to play like 10% of your home games outside of Las Vegas, this market that you're just moving into. You're already looking for a way out, kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, kind of weird. So perhaps that'll be changed. And Mick Akers of the Las Vegas Review-Journal is pretty close with the A's leadership, and or at least he has been historically. I don't know what the situation is now, but over the past couple of years, he's been pretty lockstep with them. And he did a radio interview recently, and he said Akers said he expects there to be a revision on the non-relocation agreement.
And they're also going to revisit the non-relocation agreement, which basically, ties them in for 30 years, tied to the lease agreement for 30 years.
Right.
In there, they had a section where it said they could play up to 7 games outside of the market of that would be considered home games. So basically, if they played, somewhere overseas, they played in Mexico or something along those lines, that kind of got some attention when that came out. So I'm assuming that might be adjusted in there because they're going to revise that. So a couple of things, to look forward to here this week as that meeting nears.
So we might expect perhaps new language for the non-relocation agreement to be presented, but according to the initial agenda, this is just merely for informational purposes. So there is no possible action, as our friend Casey Pratt likes to say. So and on to the last item is item number 5. Which should be the juiciest item, but really it seems like a big nothing burger to me. A draft of the development agreement is supposed to be presented here, but I'm not really seeing it. I'm just seeing kind of 3 pages of nothingness. It just lays out what the development agreement is and what satisfies a development agreement. And another way of looking at it is it just thoroughly lays out everything the A's have not done yet. It's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo, but essentially it's what they have yet to accomplish, like finalize location within the 35-acre site, design, and the funding, and everything. Basically everything you want to know, like the hard details about how this is going to get done. And it's a couple pages of that, and then at the very last sentence, there's this sentence, at the very last part of the pages, there's this sentence: the terms of the draft development agreement presented in this agenda item remain under negotiation. The draft is presented for board and public review. But again, it's just a description of what a development agreement is, but there actually is no draft of a development agreement. So it seems like nothing to me. And just for reference, like the Raiders signed and executed development agreement was 303 pages long, had like really, really in-depth details about how everything's going to get paid for. Basically like the huge plan of how this is all going to get done. From here, it looks like the A's, don't really have any meat on the bone yet. Establishing the stadium company is another step, another clerical, red tape they had to cover. But as far as, showing some real substance to this development agreement, I'm really not seeing it here based on these materials. We'll have to see if they meet again in August, because Steve Hill said in May, they likely skip August and go from like July to September. But again, they'll probably discuss this afterwards, so that's something we'll have to take note of on Thursday. And it's worth noting that the language in SB1 states that the authority of the board of directors to undertake the Major League Baseball stadium project shall expire, by December 15th, 2024, which is essentially 18 months of, from when SB1 was signed, which was June 15th, 2023. So if they don't hit it by December 15th, I think it would throw a massive wrench. I think they would have to start from day one again, point one again. They'd have to secure that $380 million in funding. So basically, that $380 million is waiting on the other side of this if Fisher can get it done. But if not, I think it would be really kind of open up Pandora's box. And I wonder if at this point MLB owners would be pissed, or if Manfred would be pissed and be like, all right, Fisher, get out of here. So as it stands now, we still have about 5 months left till the hard deadline. And so there's still time to get this done, But I just keep going back to the Raiders situation for reference. And, they went from point A to point B a lot cleaner than the A's did. There was no, the A's are trying to go from point A to point B to point C, if you really want to think about it, from Oakland to Sacramento to Vegas. Raiders had a clean one from Oakland to Vegas. And I just kind of looked, just did some preliminary research on the timeline for the Raiders, just to kind of get some context. And, Mark Davis started doing his Vegas visits in January 2015. And by April 2016, so the next year, April 2016, Davis made his first big declaration, hey, the Raiders want to go to Vegas. And by September 2017, just 17 months later, the Raiders had their groundbreaking. So, they went from the declaration to the groundbreaking in about 17 months' time. And along the way, a lot of different things happened. They had a $650 million commitment from Sheldon Adelson that was lost because he didn't like something that they did without his permission or something like that. And when he walked away, Goldman Sachs also backed out. But still, Adelson, helped them champion that $750 million room tax, which was huge for them to get that. So they got, they got basically double of what the A's got in public funding. So Fisher's probably damn, should have got there first. But, so the Raiders lost, huge financial commitments, hundreds of millions of dollars of commitments from Adelson and his Vegas Sands company and Goldman Sachs. But they were able to find $650 million from Bank of America. And they also had the benefit of the NFL Stadium Loan Program, which provided them $200 million. And they had a stadium sponsorship deal. And they had PSLs, which the A's were trying to do, but it's unprecedented. MLB probably won't work, just given the supply and demand and how it works. NFL, there's only 8 games as opposed to MLB where there's 80, so it's just not the same, And if you don't know PSLs, there's basically you pay a huge upfront fee to have rights to buy season tickets in the future. So, it just seems kind of a racket, but it works for the NFL because the demand's so high. MLB doesn't really work. So, all that to say, the Raiders figured out all those problems in 17 months, had some hiccups along the way, and they still had a groundbreaking in 17 months. Again, about 15 months have passed since the A's made their binding land deal with Wild Wild West, and we still haven't really heard much smoke when it comes to outside investors or them getting funding from banks or Goldman Sachs or Bank of America. We haven't really heard much of anything of that. And the Raiders were pretty transparent about this whole process, and the A's, we just haven't heard anything. So maybe it's happening behind the scenes. But as far as we know, there's nothing really solidified yet, and we're coming up on this December deadline. So I realize that interest rates are a lot higher now than they were a few years ago, and it's harder to borrow money and everything. But we're just not seeing much smoke right now, And then also the A's aren't giving themselves much runway for error. If an investor goes in and then pulls out, and do they have enough time to find a plan B for their funding? Or plan C or plan D or wherever the hell they're at this point in their process, So, because the Raiders, it seemed like a pretty devastating hiccup if Adelson and Goldman Sachs pull out, but they were able to pull it together, and, now they're making a lot of money at the stadium. So, perhaps their landlord, GLPI, Gaming Leisure and Properties Incorporated, will bail them out, bail Bally's out. But that's a whole another can to open up, and I'm going to try to do another Ricky Report soon. Before the A's come back, hopefully by tomorrow, by Thursday, have another Ricky Report out, kind of detailing GLPI and Bally's and how that could work out. But anyway, so we'll know a lot more. by Thursday exactly how all this plays out. But I'm really not expecting much to play out on Thursday. I think we're just kind of sitting and waiting for something juicy to come down the pipe, because right now it doesn't seem like the A's have much concrete. So, I think GLPI is something to definitely keep an eye on going forward as a potential investor and, help funding of this project. But again, they probably have to fund the casino too, which is next door. Whole big thing. But they just helped Chicago. Bally's fund something in Chicago. So I'll get into all of that on the next Ricky Report. But so 3 p.m. on Thursday is this meeting. I'm not sure if it's publicly available, but I'm sure we'll try to get some Twitter updates as we can. So thanks a lot for listening. I'm Alex Espinoza. It's a long one, but make sure to use the code RickyBlog at Last Dive Bar for your next order. Use my affiliate link down below. And all right, I will be back soon with a recap of this and more Ricky Reports. Have a good one.